a motion.
I will make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right. Agenda approved. Then we'll go on to the vote on proposed communication-based legislative concepts to recommend to the full council, which Todd shared with us.
Yeah, and actually, I failed to note discuss added language first. I guess we want to make sure everyone likes it and it works before we vote.
Yeah, I read through it and I think it looks good.
I will say I'm fine with it too.
Good, I'm glad. You don't have like a personal Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing going on.
I can't be that insecure. Sometimes just got to accept it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Same.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move that we adopt the communication recommendation or communication legislative concepts in the form they currently are in, which includes my recent amendments to the language along the lines requested by the subcommittee.
Second.
All right, Shasta seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Do I vote too? Aye. Okay, motion passes.
I'll clean it up. I'll accept the new language. I'll clean it up and then I'll post it in its final form for when we have our full council meeting.
Okay.
So forward that on. And so our next council meeting isn't till August.
September.
But we're talking about September now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Scott and I both realized that we probably can't make the one that we already set, so we'll have to redo the poll. Okay, well, that's good to know.
Okay. I think next we are talking about the public records toolkit legislative concepts. And that was the things you outlined in that initial document we handed out.
So I have to apologize. I have to get used to the like timeline for these meetings because I'm used to like, oh, the meeting's at noon, so my deadline is noon. But actually it's 2 days ago, so that I can get you guys the documents so that we can put them up online. So so I have something that we can just use as like a discussion piece, but I failed to get it to you 2 days before at least. So, so kind of the first one is a public records capacity grant program. So this is, you know, from the survey feedback that shows that, you know, compliance failures are largely capacity failures. And so this would establish a recurring dedicated fund to support staffing training and system improvements for public records compliance. And then there would be kind of priority criteria. So it could be administrated in the Public Records Advocate Office or a DOJ equivalent office. So that's kind of one concept to talk about. And then like what the reporting requirements would be, you know, where the funding would come from is another important question. Personally, I think a general fund appropriation is the cleanest because, you know, as we're always advocating that democracy, you know, core function of democracy is transparency. So this kind of ties in with that. So some of the eligible uses could be hiring or contracting public records coordinators, or we can put that into the other concept that we'll talk about, which is the kind of mutual aid agreement thing. Backlog reduction. staff training, but I think we already have like staff training with Todd and his wonderful services. So I don't know, like you're not charging for those, right? Right. So
No, we don't
um,
charge anyone for the trainings.
yeah. And then maybe technology upgrades. So that would be kind of the uses for these grants. And then kind of some suggested priority criteria, a demonstrated backlog or a request volume strain, so sudden public interest in some aspect. Also first-time applicants or historically under-resourced entities. Also having as part of the criteria evidence of a strong public interest fee waiver practices could be another thing to kind of incentivize people to do that. So we could have, yeah, and then kind of allowing regional or shared applications. So like city and county could apply together if they wanted to, if that made sense for them. So that's kind of concept number one is this grant program. Do we have any discussion on that? I'm going to close my door. I'll be right back.
Todd?
So, this is kind of like so big and I have so many ideas because thinking about how to make something like this work. Honestly, I think step one would be keeping it rather vague and conceptual because anything we introduce, even if it somehow passed, will not look like anything we introduce. It's going to go through so many iterations and discussions and like stakeholder input that I think offering a broad framework might be a better way. Like even fund, because then moving on, like even funding, I was like, kind of made me think of the notion of a susu, where everyone puts money in a pot every month, and then you're chosen kind of randomly or when needed to get the money out. It's almost like an insurance fund that everyone benefits from periodically, or like a Christmas club. Because I don't know if it should just come from the state. I think maybe if everyone puts in at the state and local level, they'll feel more invested in this program because they're a part of funding and supporting it, and maybe the funding can be proportional to their FTEs or something like that to make it reasonable, but also increase the amount of people paying into it. And then maybe they'll be more inclined to use it as well because they're actually putting their money into this too. I don't know. So I think so one, I just think we should keep it vague, and I think we should also keep it open to different potential sources of funding.
So, what you're saying is like county, cities, whatever, water districts, they would contribute money to this big pot, but then they would also benefit from it by getting grants and stuff. Is that right? Don't you
Exactly.
think that would end up getting more pushback through the legislative process by like
I do.
Association of Oregon Counties and stuff?
Yeah, I do think there could be more pushback, but also if their input is de minimis, but they get a pretty good output when needed, I think maybe we could get more buy-in. But yeah, I think no matter what we do, there's going to be pushback. But I just like the idea of leaving it open to explore various concepts to make this work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could work if obviously we would bring them in as like stakeholders and ask them what would make this worth it for you, so that there is buy-in. So maybe this stuff is it, but maybe there's something else that would make it easier for them to want to actually contribute to something like this.
I think Scott has his hand up.
Sorry, I'm failing my duties. Scott.
That's all right. That's all right. We're such a small group. It's like any one of the four of us could. I wanted to express my general support for the concept, and I hear what you're saying, Todd, about keeping it fairly high level, because the legislature is going to do what they do with it, and it will twist and contort and evolve. But I think it's a really good idea. I'm conflicted because I see the point to it, the people involved should put some resources in the game. Just to make it happen, because I think no one here is kidding ourselves or we think the legislature is just going to start handing out money because everyone's asking for money. So if the people involved who benefit, if they can pony up, I get why that makes sense. But I also think that will automatically create a knee-jerk reaction from certain groups to be like, absolutely not. And then it slaps that, or anything with money is going to slap the fiscal impact on it, which will also cause some knee-jerk reactions. So I don't know if I have an answer for the funding piece of it, but I think this is a really good idea. And I think there's some nucleus started. There's some groups across the state, and I'm thinking of some of the works that state archives has done with records folks and records managers. And so maybe there's a group of people that we could connect with. Maybe Stephanie or Chris Stenson from archives might come to a future meeting and just kind of chew on this with us. But I think this is a really good idea.
Yeah, what about even something like, it would probably start out as a pilot program, so limited run, limited impact. But what if it was even something like, some seed money from the state, and then for all other public bodies, it's almost like a subscription service. Join if you want, and then you can get the help. But if you don't join, you don't get the help, at least in its initial iteration, so that only those who feel they have the means and desire could be a part of it. And then we could see how that scales up too. I mean, look, there's going to be as many ideas as there are people talking about it, for sure.
Which again makes me think of what State Archives does with their public records management solution.
Exactly.
It's basically that same thing. It's just that also comes with a software package.
Yeah.
Shasta?
Yeah, and that might tie into the technology piece later, but yeah, I worry a little bit that everybody contributes model would lead to good governments who feel like they're doing it right, feeling like, oh, those people who aren't doing it right and aren't putting in the funding where they need to are getting more out of it than we are. I don't know. That just kind of seems to happen when human beings get involved.
And you,
well, I was
and you
thinking
do
if you
have,
don't subscribe, you don't get it. You don't get to use it, at least initially.
Right.
to Shasta's point, there are governments who will be able to afford it, and there are governments who will not be able to afford it. And so by eliminating the people who can't put in, then you lose a significant portion of our state, our governments that won't be able to participate then.
Yeah, and those would be the ones that we'd be most concerned about, right?
Yeah.
There's also like yeah, like there are certain records that happen, and it's usually not the ones that, journalists are interested in, but like I'm thinking of filing fees or court records or something. We could have like a dollar surcharge on all of those, and then those go into this fund. And it's just
I
kind
like
of
that idea because then it's just,
transparency surcharge or something.
we love surcharges. And it's one of those things that doesn't really hurt right away because it's just $1 or whatever, but it adds up.
Yeah, and that idea, as an agency issues a fee for a record request, it's just adding $1 or whatever the amount would be to that fee. So all cities, state agencies, it would be the government adding a
at the
fee.
point of creation of a record. So like every time you have a filing, like when you go to get an insurance or a driver's license, or you go to file something at the court or something like that, like at the point where a record is created, that's when the fee would happen, not when the request happens. Because then we're messing with actual cost.
Do you think there might be pushback from these fees, like impacting like everyday Oregonians?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that I've heard Republican lawmakers say, we have fees out the wazoo. So, I mean, there's only two mechanisms for revenue, right? Fees or taxes. So pick your poison.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about if it would like disproportionately affect like a certain Oregonian, right? Like low income Oregonians or something, and that would make it look bad. Um, so I don't know if that would be the case with this or not, but I guess just something to like keep in mind.
Yep.
I apologize. I came to the party a little late.
Hey, Mark.
What is the fee to be used for? Would it be to help the public body? Can you describe to me what that $1 fee would be? I apologize again for being a few minutes late.
Yeah, so I was explaining the Public Records Capacity Grant Program. Oh, Scott left too. Yeah, so it would create a, recurring dedicated fund to support staffing and system improvements for public records compliance. So it would be like a grant program that people or entities would apply to in order to, have backlog reductions or technology upgrades or something like that that benefit public records and transparency.
Generally, so this would be a fund that would be presumably held at the state level for grants, or is that the concept, or is the dollar?
It would be administered by either the public records advocate or a DOJ equivalent office.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I think that the only pushback you're going to have is just the administrative burden. So just track me for a second. If you get a vector control district out in, Timbuktu that only gets one record request a year, they're going to have to administer and somehow send that $1 back to the state. Is the juice worth the squeeze is the question.
Right. And I also feel like, again, like the point at record creation is what we want to look at rather than messing with our actual cost standard.
Right. So it's just you're just imposing a flat $1 fee for any records being produced by a public body.
No, I mean, if we did a fee model, like my concept would be we do it at the point of creation of a record. So at the creation of a driver's license record, at the creation of filing something with the court system, at the creation of vehicle registration.
Yeah, boy, a dollar fee doesn't seem like a whole lot. I don't think you're going to get a lot of pushback on that. I mean, I could see some people who are regular and frequent filers, as you said, like court documents, and filing fees at counties, for real estate transactions, what have you. But I don't know if a dollar fee is going to really generate a lot of opposition either.
Well, I'm trying to wrap my head around the list of moments and opportunities of when a record is created. Taken broadly, every time an email is sent, you're creating potentially a public record.
Right.
So you will have to be just logistically looking for those more transactional instances, the building permit fees. When a police department issues a citation, that's creating a record. So are we adding $1 to every citation across the state that issue? I mean, right? You want to be very specific. And then if you have to get specific about which new record creation interactions you're gonna put a fee on, then you're basically calling out not everybody, you're calling out specific moments. Yeah.
I mean, another thought that I had, I mean, I don't think that it could be every, like, I don't think that it would generate enough to be the entire capacity of the program, but some sort of additional penalty on If a court decision doesn't go their way, there's an additional penalty that then gets routed into the transparency fund.
The local government's probably not going to like that idea.
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah, no, I
being
appreciate it.
open and transparent.
Yep. I mean, that's why I think, couching it as a general fund appropriation because this is a core and central tenet of our democracy is going to be the cleanest. Whether that's politically viable, I don't know. But if we're talking about high level concept and we want to pass this kind of more abstract thing on, then I think that that's probably the way to do it.
So Shasta, will you help me understand a little bit more about how this fee would be used? Because I see, I don't know, are we trying to help with the fund, the big people who are getting just, gobs and gobs of requests, like Department of Human Services or the state police or the correctional institution, to better and more quickly address public records or requests? Or is the intent behind the program to help the smaller government entities process records requests, or is the answer yes to both? Right?
It's yes to both. Yeah. So the priority criteria would be they either have a demonstrated backlog or request volume surge, or they are first-time applicants. So then we're getting kind of more of the, it can't be Portland Police gets to have a grant every year. And then evidence of strong public interest fee waiver practices would also be like kind of add weight. There would be like a priority criteria formula for how these grants are awarded.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't think I talked about the reporting requirements that I think would be important to include, and that would be like a biennial report by whatever the administrative agency is, showing reduced litigation or faster response times or backlog reduction. And this would not be complicated. Like I don't want it to have a bunch of pieces to it, but just a basic like cause and effect, like this grant did this, so that it can, hopefully justify its existence. So that's the grant program. I could talk about this other concept that we had on mutual aid and surge support.
Yeah. And so the grant program kind of has a solution to that, right? But we're talking about like a separate mutual aid thing. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is either like we could, so another question that I had was, are we trying to do like a public records toolkit omnibus bill where all three of these concepts are part of it, or are we going to split them out into two different ones, and which one's more politically viable? So there's the grant program, which is money. So, maybe that's not viable because as we just discussed, it's really hard to get money. But then kind of the mutual aid and surge support thing probably wouldn't have a fiscal impact. I mean, because it would be kind of a mutual aid thing. So do we separate that out, or do we mush them together? So I can explain kind of what more on what the second concept would be. Ready? Okay. So public records, mutual aid, and surge support program. So we would establish a formal like system for high volume or high profile requests. So once again, could be housed in the Public Records Advocate Office. And then this administrator would maintain a roster of either trained temporary staff, temps that can like go into these surge events, or contracted like subject matter experts such as legal reviewers or digital forensics or something like that. So that would be deployable on request. So people can say, hey, the water board got, this huge influx in requests. Can you help us out? Or for requesters, that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, there could be like certain thresholds that we put in place saying, that you guys need help. Let us help you. Such as, consistently not meeting the time window that's in the law. Saying, what I really see this as is a fix for the safety valve provision in the public records law saying we don't have enough capacity, so we can't do that within the time frame. So this would be a way to say, okay, then let's help you out. So again, triggers for use would be a sudden spike in requests, such as a major incident or massive media attention, requests of exceptional complexity or size, and again, a demonstrated backlog beyond the statutory timelines. So this would allow for intergovernmental agreements for staff sharing or cost reimbursement or temporary reassignment. Funding model would be like cost sharing between the agencies, or the state could cover like baseline program costs, the administrative part of it. So this again ties back to our survey and public comment that highlights these kind of flashpoint events that overwhelm mostly small agencies.
Todd, I think you had a question. Oh, there it is. Do you want to?
I just had some thoughts when I realized Shasta wasn't done, so I took my hand down because I don't want to interrupt. This is the one I think I have the biggest concerns about, not because it isn't a good idea. I just don't know practically how well this could be implemented. First of all, look, I think you guys won't be surprised when I say this, that I have a concern about any concept that adds to our existing workload without the guarantee of additional staff, because to administer any of these programs will require a great deal of time as well as knowledge and experience to do them effectively. And new statutory mandates often do not come with the requisite staffing. And unless there's a one-to-one here, I'd have a hard time supporting these programs being placed in our office no matter what they were. And I think that's just obvious. You've seen our numbers and you understand how many we are, et cetera. In terms of implementing this idea specifically about bringing in effectively outside staff, we've heard from respondents to our survey, as well as those that have come and testified before us, that, some people are doing spreadsheets for tracking their information. Others are using GovQA and every solution in between. So there's the ability to have someone either already trained on existing systems or to come in and understand them effectively in a timely fashion for completing the request. Like if we're trying to address delays and timelines, I'm not sure bringing in new staff would help that. I mean, certainly it could take the pressure off of staff that are dealing with existing requests so that maybe whomever comes in can work on new stuff. But then it's like, well, how does this affect timelines? When is it fair for a public body to wait to respond to a request? What about even just like reaching out to our office or whomever is administering this program and applying for help because their timelines are becoming like attenuated? Are they allowed to delay requests because they're now saying, well, we asked for more help and we're waiting for them to come? So wouldn't they still effectively be using the safety valve provision or giving, reasonable estimates of when they're going to complete work that is now like weeks out simply because they're waiting to hear back from who's ever running this program and getting someone in place and training them up on their programs? And then what about things like liability? What if this person comes in and just wreaks havoc or makes a total mistake or discloses something they're not supposed to that's not covered by the indemnity portion of the public record statute? Who pays for that? Whose insurance pays for that? Whose risk management? So, I mean, I love what we're doing, but I think this one might be the hardest one to make happen. It's not impossible. And maybe, again, for those that want to cooperate with the program, it could be like, okay, tell us how you keep track and so on and so forth, so that maybe if we were looking for people to have like in a stable ready to go, they could be broken up by, well, I'm ORMS trained, I'm GovQA trained, I'm great at spreadsheets. I don't know, just some ideas that come to mind about this one in particular.
Scott, it looks like you shared a link. What's going on with the link?
I did, but I think Mark had his
You
hand
want to
up
go?
first.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Todd's concerns. I'm just thinking out loud to myself here as to having somebody come in, and I don't do police at all, but I just don't see a large police or even a small police department having somebody come in from the outside who's not an employee having access to departments' criminal records or what have you. I don't see that happening. I do like the concept of being able to assist, a public body that may be reaching these thresholds that you had shared. I just don't think that there's going to be a comfort level of public bodies allowing some outside individual to come in and potentially access government documents, even though they may be public records. There seems to me an awful lot of potential for problems, but the concept I don't disagree with. I just think the implementation of something like this will be extraordinarily difficult. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, I kind of share the same concerns that Todd and Mark have noted. There's 240 cities in Oregon and 36 counties, and we all do things the same, but all very slightly differently, right? And then I got to me thinking, I know that in Washington State, and that's the link I shared, they have, I think, tackled this idea in a way that is interesting to look at how they funded it. It's called the Municipal Research and Services Center, Cooperative Center, the Municipal Research and Services Center, and it's funded by the Association of Washington Cities, Washington State Association of Counties, and a small portion of city and county liquor revenues distributed by the state of Washington to the Department of Commerce, which then contracts with the MRSC to provide city and county. And this is specific for legal and research and policy, but it's the same idea of pooling resources and making services and support available. So I just wanted to highlight that there's perhaps an adjacent and slightly overlapping concept of this very nature that they've had in Washington for, I think, going on 25 or 30 years. So when you into this idea, that's sort of where my mind went. The other mind, and it's along the lines, and I think Mark and I both represent and speak for associations that part of which, like the Recorders Association, special districts, part of our mission is to connect folks doing the government work to kind of get at this information and resource and expertise sharing on that professional networking level. So I think again, I think this is a really good idea, and I think taking steps to ask the state to encourage that and to continue talking about it, maybe later in this year or leading up to a session next year or the year after that, having conversations with some of these groups that are already starting, that have been doing this, and maybe inviting someone from the MRSC up in Washington. That's different state, different laws, but it just got me thinking. I think there are models out there that we might be able to encourage. It looks like, very briefly, they cite their revised code of Washington. So the legislature at some point adopted a law, which could be something that if we were to model that, we could advocate the legislature to adopt something similar. But that's where my mind went. Just wanted to share that example from up north.
Yeah, I think that's all really good feedback. And so I guess the thought around this is like, Todd, you're providing a lot of like legal and that kind of expertise, and this would be more like the technical, like doing side. So I guess like how do we get at that problem, the like physically actually looking for records problem that we're seeing identified in the survey?
Todd?
A lot of ways, I think the answer is the same old answer: more money. Because more money means more people and more technology and more of a will to actually sort of like upgrade technology, make records available, proactively disclose them, have sufficient staff available to process requests in a timely manner, shield them from other duties that would take away their time from processing public records requests. And it's the same old problem. If all these issues had more money, like maybe they wouldn't exist, because the law on its face is clear that's about disclosure, but then all these other aspects have been rolled into it to sort of somehow limit that, in part, I think, recognizing the difficulties of actually being fully like into disclosure. There's never enough money, there's never the right technology, there's never enough people and time. So I really like some sort of centralized fund or grant system. And I like the idea of helping public bodies acquire the types of technology that would assist them to do their work. Because, yeah, like a special district that's 3 people maybe doesn't need GovQA or ORMS, but they need some reasonable way of tracking their records, making them easy to find and to parse and to disclose. And so maybe you're headed that way, Shasta, but I think if we've already discussing grants and people, we should talk next about how can we make technology reasonably affordable to these public bodies to meet their needs.
Yes, that is an excellent segue to my next topic. Okay, so next concept would be a statewide public records technology collaborative. So this would create shared IT infrastructure and purchasing power to modernize records management. So this could mean, a centralized request tracking system, but it would be like an opt-in, because again, not everybody's going to need something like that. But there would be a standardized kind of intake, tracking, and reporting method to, creating records, and public-facing request portals. This could also mean shared software licensing, so state negotiated contracts for things like redaction tools or e-discovery platforms or record management systems. This could be like one of the systems that we're already using, and then just allowing the state to negotiate for a larger license that includes, entities that opt in. So there could be, like as part of this, there would be data standards such as transparency by design concepts, like a data dictionary. And I can dig out more of the transparency by design stuff from many years ago. But kind of uniform metadata and categorization to improve that searchability that, drags down records requests. So again, I imagine this would be best as kind of an opt-in, like what Todd was talking about earlier with like a subscription or something, but it's that kind of not a mandate, but an opt-in to start with incentives. Maybe we tie the grants to this concept, and then the state would offer technical assistance for onboarding, so that kind of training piece. So again, the tie into the evidence of need for this is in the survey feedback. There's a lot of complaints about fragmented, outdated, or even non-existent record management systems, especially in small jurisdictions.
Go ahead, Todd.
I like this idea and I think it could work. And I think maybe the biggest incentive here is bargaining power. I remember when I worked for the Oregon Unified Court System and they were onboarding a new technology, and I remember talking, like reviewing it and saying like, wow, there's like all these concepts like don't apply to us, or can't we modify this? Can't we modify that? And they'd say, no, this is like a third party private, company, and the state of Oregon simply isn't big enough compared to their other clients to negotiate successfully for anything other than off the shelf software that we can afford. And I think a lot of local public bodies have that issue too. They're just too small to really get terms that make sense. So if the state partners with local public bodies to contract together for licenses for software or for these systems, I think it could lead to a lower price point. Also, my office is now contracting to use ORMS for our data, for our record storage. And I think we're getting something like 10 licenses. We don't need 10 licenses, but that's like the minimum you get at their minimum, still rather high price. So if, let's say I enter into a partnership with 4 other public bodies to share those licenses, and we're only paying for the licenses we're using amongst ourselves, even though we're paying the singular cost for 10 licenses, it becomes cost effective for everyone to adopt this technology. And so I think this one might have the most legs, or at least I like it the most so far.
Scott?
Yeah, I would just piggyback, and I shared the link to the ORMS page. It's a really good idea, and I really honestly think it's the nucleus of that ORMS system that State Archives created like 16 years ago. And in my mind, I've heard conversations from colleagues in cities about adopting and trying to use state contracts for FOIA, all the records request form. So maybe there's room to have a conversation with State Archives about maybe it's a module or another add-on to ORMS. I know there's a contract there, there's a private developer involved, and so that's got to be worked out. But there's sort of a vehicle existing for this exact thing, and the more and more we move into the 21st century, and all levels of government are dragged into technology, I think there's room to discuss with State Archives about adding a public records request module. So maybe in my mind, Shasta, on a couple of these fronts, I think there are maybe 2 groups that will want to maybe invite to future conversations in the legislative subcommittee. ORMS for sure, Chris Stenson and Stephanie Ark, whoever they want to bring. But then I also know that like city recorders, IT managers across the state have a professional association. At least I know that for cities are the case. And I'm sure Mark Cianani said, I'm sure there may be other levels of IT managers at special districts or whatever. There are these other groups that I'm sure would love to collaborate and have this conversation. It'd just be good to hear their feedback. So I think it's a great idea. I think there's some things moving already, and maybe there's a couple of groups we should invite to future meetings.
Mark?
Yeah, I kind of like this idea too. But before I forget one of my points, I want to mention it. Shasta, you had asked whether we should put these all in one bill or do them separately, and I'd like to address that by saying do them separately. And I'll be advocating for a very, very narrow relating to clause on each of these bills, just so we can avoid shenanigans. For those of you who aren't lobbyists, trust me. I know that's hard to swallow when a lobbyist says trust me, but I'll just put that aside.
We like you, Mark. We like you.
Having said, thank you. I appreciate it. I just think that you're going to create more trouble for yourself if you do an omnibus bill, because there are going to be some that like components and there are going to be some who don't like components. And why would you sacrifice the whole ship in the event that one of them is too heavy of a lift, right? So I would recommend, at least from a strategic standpoint, doing these separately. Having said that, back to the concept that Shasta was just describing, and Scott, I think, knows this as well, that on state contracts, local bodies can often piggyback off of existing contracts that a public body has entered into. And so I think that if you were able to establish a program as you described, Shasta, I think other public bodies could easily join as a piggyback contract. So this may be, I think that the groundwork has already sort of been laid for that, if you will. Now it's a matter of, identifying the resources to make this happen. But I do like this concept, and I think it would be helpful and frankly attractive. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna just be honest with you. With Todd's admonition earlier, we're entering a legislative session where resources are going to be very scarce, and it's going to be very difficult to shake any general funds loose to be able to stand up any new programs. So just that caution, but I do think that this one is worthy of pursuing. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm not a lawyer, so I can't write this in legalese, but I could kind of write out a document that kind of incorporates this feedback, and we can discuss it at the next meeting and see what we want to take out and what we want to edit.
And no matter what we submit, Ledge Council is always going to put in their own words anyway.
Right.
I think as long as we're clear and concise, we'll be okay. And plus, I'm always happy to help with the writing. So.
Yeah, and you'll get, if you do this properly, okay, I would recommend, again, here's the lobbyist in me. I'd recommend putting together a concept paper earlier rather than later with as much detail as possible, because once that, and I know that Todd will help, maybe help in drafting, but again, as Todd said, Ledge Council is going to write what they write. And the good thing about it is if you get your legislative concept in early, you'll get an opportunity to make any corrections. You'll only get one chance at it, but you'll get a chance to modify the first draft that is composed by Legislative Council. And so I would recommend that you try to get these concepts together sooner rather than later. I believe that legislative concepts, I don't have my calendar in front of me right now, but I think it's like September 21st. You have to have a legislative concept in for pre-session filing. And that's the deadline. And I'll go back and look, or Todd can even look, what that first pre-session file deadline is, because I'd really recommend that you get it in before that.
Yeah, so we were talking, I think, before you got on, Mark, that the August 20th meeting is going to have to be rescheduled because both me and Scott aren't available now, but we'll have to make sure that it's before that so that we can have the full council forwarded on. And then Rep. Anderson's chief of staff is not here, but he was saying that he's happy to submit those.
Andy Smith?
Yeah. Oh, maybe. Is that his name?
It is.
Okay.
Mark, can I just ask you, are there ledge days in September?
So I think we have June, and then September, and then December. Again, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I believe we do have September legislative days.
Okay, because I'm going to send a new doodle poll for September, plus now we have this potential legislative concept deadline. So I just wanted to know when to avoid in September. Can you maybe get back to me and let me know?
Yep, I'll do so.
Thank you.
And if we want to get going a little sooner, I mean, the one that we approved at the beginning of this meeting, we could just have an emergency council meeting sooner and at least forward that one on.
Todd?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is, especially based on the past work of former iterations of the legislative subcommittee, is I think we're off to a great start, but we really do need testimony from those both who would be part of this and those who might oppose it to understand what they're looking for, what changes they'd want to see, and if we could draft a concept that's reasonably uncontestable when we submit it. I mean, there's always going to be people who have issues, but I think we need to hear from others. So yeah, this one's going to take time, in my opinion, but the other one's ready to go.
Okay, how much time should we wait for the next meeting of this subcommittee? Because we'd need time to get these two entities at least that Scott mentioned, and then I'll put the call out to all the journalists.
We'll have a public comment section pretty soon here. I think we're just wrapping up this one section, Joe. Did somebody else have something to say before I started chatting?
Just like, are we gonna have another meeting in 2 weeks or a month, or what are we looking at?
I have voted in so many doodle polls. I don't know what's what anymore. I thought we were meeting it next in August, or September, but
That's the full council meeting, but the subcommittee.
oh, the subcommittee. Okay.
Maybe
I
4
mean,
weeks if we're trying to get people to come.
yeah. Yeah, and so the goal is to get people who would comment on the IT solutions thing we're discussing right now. Is that right?
Or
Yeah, I
potentially
mean,
all
I
of
would,
them.
yeah, I can put together something written for all three of them, and then those, and then obviously I would do a better job about submitting that before the deadline, and then, that would be the basis of, us soliciting feedback, and then kind of drafting the concepts that would go on to the council and then the legislature.
Just
Cool.
if we had something in writing that we could share real quick, I could try to get an invitation to the IT folks, and I don't know if you want to do it, Todd, or I'm happy to reach out to Stephanie and Chris and invite RMS to come talk to or hear about it and provide feedback.
It's your idea. I'm fine with you running with it. What about OAMR?
Yeah. Yeah, our records
So I'm
management
happy to
committee.
share what I put together for this meeting, but I do kind of want to like tweak it a little bit based on the feedback, and then I can get it to you by the end of the day, or get it to everybody. I don't know. I'll get it to Todd and he'll put it up on the website.
Yeah, get it to me. I'll post it, and
Okay.
then yeah, people can use it. Whomever's reaching out to bring people in, so they know what they're coming to talk about.
Yeah.
We're gonna do another poll for a June meeting then. Sounds like 4 weeks out.
Or, I mean, we're all here, so after public testimony, we could all try to work together right now and pick something too.
That'd be great.
That sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Closing that discussion, moving on to public commentary. Looks like we got a member of the public here. If there's anybody else, please just raise your hand. Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, April. I do have, excuse me, I do have a concern with using the FTEs for a point of a record surcharge. But by the same token, I see Scott's concern over at what point does a record become created, email, blah, 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 blah. What I've seen on some applications is that a surcharge is the $1 surcharge, 50-cent surcharge is applied to the actual point in which the application for the records request is submitted. Just like when you file a court document, when the complaint is submitted, the money goes down on the table unless, of course, you get a fee waiver. Dealing with the secondary point of what Mark was raising concern about, of having outside people coming in and looking at police records, health records, human resources, blah, 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 blah. There is the metadata documentation in which the computer records itself when a document is created. If a records request is created on June 12th and it hasn't been fulfilled till June 28th, you know there's a gap there in compliance. You do not have to look at any of the personalized records there. The firewall, the licensing, I like the concept overall, but I do feel that there needs to be a very strong firewall as well as a likeness in which groups join the license. For example, a police department might want a whole lot more different bells and whistles as compared to someone like in Mark's instance who just does water, a smaller community type of thing. I also think that the archivist should come to the table with respects to how to structure records, because those are already structured within the archivist. But what do I know? I'm just a public person looking on the inside. So thank you so much for allowing me to make comment.
Thanks, Joe. And with that, seeing no other comments, going to close the public commentary, and we'll talk about next meeting date now.
How's around 11 or 12 for everyone during the week of June 6th, June 8th? Like during that week.
June 8th, I'm pretty wide open. Monday, June 8th.
Okay. Yeah, or any time else during that. Actually, I may not be available on the 8th, but during that week. So I guess Tuesday to Friday of that week.
I just have a thing on the 10th at 11.
Okay.
Everything else is yeah,
I'm
flexible.
available that Thursday and Friday, but not earlier.
Thursday and Friday? Okay.
Thursday and Friday, I'm available too.
So the 11th at noon, does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Sure.
Alrighty. Oh, I just realized it's the last day of school for my kids, so hopefully it's not a half day, but my wife, it works my
That's
wife
why
to
I
figure
was
that
like,
out.
finals
although
is
one
that
of them-
Monday.
Yeah, I know. One of them's driving, so I just have to worry about one of them. I'm sure we'll make it work. Okay, so noon on the 11th.
Mhm.
Mark, you still with us? Does that work for you? We'll have to hope it does.
Yeah, I'll message him.
Okay. I will get
Okay.
an invite out.
And that's the date that once we get the writing from Shasta, that's the date we'll invite people to.
Yes.
I think that works. I think
Yeah.
that works. I have to go to a memorial on the East Coast, but I'll figure it out.
Okay. And Mark, I was wondering, I realize you're the lobbyist for the special districts, but do you think there's anyone else from the special districts who would want to come and talk to us about this, sort of knowledgeable across the board, doing the work in the trenches for the special districts?
I mean, it's a great question, Todd. And honestly, I love it when Scott says there are 241 cities, and I get to say there are 950 districts. So just wanted to make that plug. But to answer your question, Todd, if anybody was an IT person, it's typically going to be a much larger district. So like a Tualatin fire and rescue, things like that. Most of our districts, quite honestly, don't have these IT or city recorders or things of that nature. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. But I can certainly drag my net and see if there's somebody who would be willing to address the council.
Great, thanks.
Great. Look at us ending on time.
Yeah, wonderful. Guess I'll see y'all in June.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.